All right, y'all, it's 1 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started. Can everyone hear me all right? Cool. Thanks for the head nods and thumbs up. So just to let you all know, Mod 2 students, and this is something that I think y'all are kind of familiar with, Mod 4 students have been preparing this throughout these Gear Up talks, these lightning talks throughout the inning. And so this is their Gear Up time to go ahead and present those to you. So the way that we're going to facilitate this is we have 5 students here, 5 Mod 4 students here, and they're each going to go take about 5 to 7 minutes or so to go ahead and present their Gear Up, their lightning talk. And after that, I'm going to split every one of you all up into a breakout group, including those Mod 4 students. You might be in those breakout groups as well. Before I put you into a breakout group, whoever just presented is going to drop a set of kind of like discussion questions into our cohort channel. So those of you that are presenting, I kind of mentioned already, I added you to our 2001 backend channel. So before I put everyone into breakout groups after your presentation, then you're just going to drop those discussion questions into their channel. I'll put you in breakout groups, and then you'll have about 5 minutes or so, 4 minutes to discuss those discussion questions. Then we'll come back for the next presenter. Any questions on how this is going to work, the format of it? Or any questions related to this in general? All right. We are going to go in order as it appeared on the spreadsheet. So Linda, you are up first. So if you want to go ahead and share your screen, you can go ahead and take over.
Sounds good. Okay. Cool. Can everyone see that? Cool. Let me just... Sorry, 1 second while I get to present mode. Okay, cool. Awesome. So hi, everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Linda, and I will be talking about gaming addiction disorder and what we know about it today. I picked this particular topic because it's just been something that has fascinated me as far back as I can remember. At least for me, playing video games is something I see as self-care, and so it's just been really interesting to kind of explore how we as a society interact with technology, in this case video gaming, and the impacts that we see. Cool. So gaming disorder has actually been added to the International Classification of Diseases list by the World Health Organization. This update happened back in 2018, and so this new list, it's just this like official list of diseases and things that they've decided, and this one's going to get updated in January 2022. And so there's been a lot of chatter about whether or not gaming disorder is actually real and what all of that entails. And so the WHO have decided to go ahead and throw that into their ICD list based on a consensus of experts after reviewing all of the available studies. And there's very specific language around what constitutes gaming disorder, but essentially it's compounding negative consequences experienced by someone who continually prioritizes gaming over family, school, and other obligations that they might have. And so you might be asking yourself, well, is that me? Because when Final Fantasy VII came out, I definitely played 12 plus hours a day. Or, I spend quite a few hours playing Call of Duty on the weekend. No, not at all. This is actually defined as something that needs to occur over at least a span of 12 months. And so most of us are probably in the clear. It affects a very small percentage of people who actually play video games. And so another part of the controversy as far as whether or not this is actually real is that experts want to see some sort of test people can take that will return or define some sort of positive or negative result, as well as the fact that a lot of this language around defining the disorder is very similar to what's being used to describe something like gambling addiction or substance abuse. There's also not as much research as there is for other things, and so experts also point to that as an issue. It may be nearly impossible to discern between actual gaming addiction and high engagement. And so what research do we have? Well, we can actually look at the brain, and we see that when individuals play video games, it does light up certain parts of their brain that are associated with the reward system. And this is caused by dopamine releases. And as you can see here in this photo or picture here, the dopamine pathways are related to reward or motivation, pleasure, and as well as compulsion. Experts who treat gaming disorder or addiction also note that their clients experience very similar symptoms as those with addiction substance abuse addiction, such as like mood modification, cravings, and issues with tolerance. On the other hand, though, these studies have also shown that when people play video games, it lights up areas responsible for visuospatial responsibilities and can help make those better. And so these visuospatial responsibilities are the types of things we see in professions such as surgery. And so it's not necessarily like all bad, is what experts are trying to say there. So if someone does have gaming addiction, what can we do to treat it? Well, usually experts will start off with an initial assessment and kind of look to see whether or not that person's behavior points to an addiction or not. They actually do have structured programs as well. We can probably think of them similarly to rehab. And the most famous programs are Restart in Washington, and then there's also an Institute of Gaming Disorders. It's a big treatment facility in the UK. It looks like there are also, for less serious cases, most people are just fine if they make changes to their lifestyle, like minimizing the amount of time they dedicate to screenplay. And this has actually been of some concern to a lot of countries and governments, and so there have been attempts to pass policy. For example, there's a district in Japan where they want to try to limit screen time for children to 1 hour. And the issue with that is that it's hard to enforce. And so if that's the case, what are some of the other things we can do to maybe address this problem? And so another challenge we come across when we're looking at gaming addiction is this concept of gamification. It's a very important design concept when it comes to video games as well as applications. I'm sure a lot of us are very familiar with this. Like when you sign into an application, you get points or rewards. You might also see progress bars in your video games. Daily rewards. There's also a socialization aspect to it. In general, games and other applications are designed specifically to be addictive. And so if that's the case, what can we do as developers to really mitigate that? Those who treat gaming disorder often find that their clients struggle the most with games such as World of Warcraft, Fortnite, and Overwatch. And so those have a very heavy socialization component to them. Oh, let's see, sorry. So yeah, like I was mentioning, what considerations are there, especially us as programmers, what do we need to think about? Looking at the media when there are extreme cases involving gaming addiction. For example, there are several cases in South Korea where people have died because they've just spent, so many hours in a row gaming, or they've neglected, in one case, an infant who died because her parents decided to go to the game cafe instead of actually staying to take care of her and feed her. And so when we see cases like that, the media tends to really focus on those and kind of question whether or not video games have a certain place in our lives and how can we limit that. It also raises parental concerns. But on the flip side, we also see esports and competitive gaming, and the video game industry is now a $120 billion industry. It provides a lot of jobs, entertainment. We now see that there are jobs in esports and gaming. I mean, those professional gamers you see on TV and online, they can earn like up to millions of dollars. And so it's a very lucrative industry. But overall, just based on what we've seen and the research we have, it definitely is a complex topic, and it's something that we, just as programmers and just as people in general, really need to pay attention to. And so the questions that I have for you all to consider today are: 1, are video games often designed to be addictive? Is this ethical? Why or why not? Do organizations in the gaming industry need to be more socially responsible? And if so, how? And lastly, recent studies show that the brain does not stop developing until sometime in our 20s. in that case, should we take more precautions to protect children and or educate parents about this? And I'll go ahead and drop these in the channel here in just a second. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Linda. All right. As Linda drops us into the channel, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and open up these breakout rooms. Mod 4 students, you'll also be put into these. It's random, so there might be more than one of you in some of these, but we still want you all to go over all of those questions that Linda just put in the channel. So I'm going to go ahead and open up these rooms, and in 4 minutes, I'll have you all come back. All right, thanks, Linda. And next we have Jordan Holtkamp. So Jordan, go ahead and get your screen ready.
Hey, everybody. 1 second.
You're good. And whenever you're ready, Jordan, you can go ahead and get started.
Okay. Okay, how does that look? Can you see it? Yeah, I can only see Meg. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Okay. Just gonna grab my. Can you guys see my slide notes or no?
No.
Okay, perfect. Okay, 1 sec. Oh no. Okay. All right, can you guys still see my slides? Sorry, my screen is just like being weird. I only have one screen, so it's like kind of hard. You're good? Okay, cool. So I'm talking about big data inferences, rethinking data protection law. And basically this is just something that I was like interested in from a documentary that I saw. Just like, I don't know, a lot of crazy stuff happens out there with our data. So I didn't know exactly what my rights were. I didn't know like what companies were able to do with like the data I was using. So I just wanted to look into it a little bit more, or at least like nudge my way in barely. So what rights do we currently have? Again, I wasn't super sure. I looked into it a little bit, felt sort of like this after I did. So let's get into what I found a little bit. So I'm just going to read this slide real quick. There's no single principal data protection legislation in the United States. At the federal level, the Federal Trade Commission Act broadly empowers the U.S. Federal Trade Commission to bring enforcement actions to protect consumers against unfair, deceptive practices. Okay, so that to me seems like they're just like trying to like push companies to like do the right thing, kind of. Deceptive practices include a company's failure to comply with its published privacy promises and its failure to provide adequate security of personal information, in addition to its use of deceptive advertising or marketing methods. Okay, so I looked at that and I was like, okay, what does that mean? It seems like they're just like, basically like you can't get in trouble if you're like saying what you're gonna do. So it's like, okay, well, what are these companies saying they're gonna do? And since I didn't really want to like, look into every single company, what they have us do as like users, I just looked into Facebook because I feel like they've had some data stuff going on. And their data laws are pretty extensive and basically just like a giant list of everything that Facebook is allowed to use, like that it's allowed to use against, for its users, whatever it is. So here's like just a little snippet from like their page. Data with special protections. You can choose to provide information in your Facebook profile fields or life events about your religious views, political views, who you're interested in, or your health. This and other information, such as racial or ethnic origin,
Hey,
philosophical
Jordan.
beliefs. Yeah.
Sorry, your slides are not, I don't think your slides are showing. We're
they're
still on
not?
the first slide. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Oh my God. Okay, one sec. That's upsetting. Hmm. Oh, okay, here we go. Okay.
That's good.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Zip down a little forward. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay. So now you guys can see this. Cool. Where was I at? Was I here? Okay, yeah, this is where I was at. Okay, so, and you guys can see this okay now?
Yes.
Data with special protections, you can choose basically to provide all this stuff. Yeah, I already read this, but could be subject to special protections under the laws of your country. So like, again, super ambiguous. Like, I'm not really sure what that means. So basically, when you're like looking at this information that they're gathering from you, like what does it say about you, right? So Facebook is like using this information essentially to make inferences about its users, like some of that stuff that we talked about with like religion, age, sexual preferences, whatever it is. And it's super hard for users to be able to access that data because it's not data that they're just gathering off the page. It's like stuff that they are assuming about their users based on what they're using. And then like what are companies able to do with that data? So this is really quick. I'll just read through this. It's this case of like Trinidad and Tobago. And essentially they were, Trinidad is this island in the Caribbean. Half the population is Indian, half the population is like Afro-Caribbean Black. And there's essentially two political parties on the island, one of them representing the Indian population, the other one representing the Black population. So they obviously want, you know, their own ethnicity to be in power. And essentially what happened was this company was hired by the Indian political party to essentially do research and figure out how they could get into power. And what they did was they studied the Facebook profiles of young people, as well as they like went there and studied the youth of the country. They found that the young people felt like they didn't have a voice in the political world, in the government. And then they also found that Indian children and Indian familial hierarchies were super super strong, and they really respected their elders and what their elders had to say. So this was like enough information for them to run with, and basically they started this movement called Do So that was essentially just anti-government, anti-voting, and they knew all the kids of Trinidad, Black and Indian, would join this group. And essentially they were betting on the fact that the Indian kids would still vote because that was what their parents told them to do. The Black kids would not vote. So that was what they wanted to happen. And essentially what happened, the difference in 18 to 35-year-old voter turnout was about 40%, swung the election by 6%, and the Indian party won. So that just like got me thinking a little bit about some of this stuff. Like, should that be, I guess, like a legal thing that is able to happen? And then, yeah, these are just some of the discussion questions that I'll shoot in there into the 2001 backend channel, right?
Yep.
And that's pretty much it. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Jordan.
Yeah.
Go ahead and copy and paste those into our channel.
I will.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. And I'll go ahead and open up these breakout rooms again. Y'all have 4 minutes. Hey, Tyler. Which one were you in before? Did you not get
Sorry.
invited to one?
I did on the first time. I was on my
Okay.
phone and then I had to come back to my laptop.
Gotcha.
So sorry.
That's okay. Do you remember anyone that was in your group?
Yeah, the guy just speaking was in my group.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jordan. There you go.
Thanks.
Yep.
Are we on the screens? And
Yep.
there, let's see. So my name is Virginia Ladd, front end, and I'm here to talk to you about the very real impact that tech has on our environment. Oh, okay. I want to share with you all today the environmental impact you have on our planet as a web developer, and kind of realize that code is not just some cloud space floating in the ether, that it does have very real impacts on our physical world. So here is the facts. The music video for Despacito set an internet record in 2018 when it became the first video to hit 5 billion views on YouTube. In the process, it burned the same amount of energy that 40,000 US homes use in a year. Every search, click, or streamed video sets several servers to work. A Google search for Despacito activates servers in 6 to 8 data centers around the world, consuming very real energy resources. The IoT, or the Internet of Things, is projected to exceed 75.44 billion devices worldwide in 5 years. So that's a huge increase. Data centers consume about 3% of electricity worldwide, which could rise to 8% of the global total by 2030. One data center uses up as much electricity as 25,000 average homes in the US, and they produce nearly 1% of the world's CO2. This year, data centers could produce almost half as much CO2 as US cars. There are now roughly 3 million data centers across America, and all of these servers make up about 2% of total United States electricity use, roughly the equivalent of 5 nuclear power plants. So here is the reality. This is called the Big O notation, and it's used in computer science to describe the performance or complexity of an algorithm. Big O specifically describes the worst case scenario and can be used to describe the execution time required or the space used, as in the memory on the disk, by an algorithm. As you can see here, there is a very small sliver of excellent code writing at the bottom. And this little green bit down here. Let's see, this is called constant operations. No matter how much data there is, it will always take this much time to execute. An example of that is finding a value from an array with an index number. From there, you can visually see the impact code can have on both physical RAM space and time it takes to execute. All right, bear with me a little while I try and explain what this is. So we're given a problem here. All the numbers 1 to a million are included in an array, but there's one duplicate number. So technically you have a million plus 1 items. The array is in randomized order, so how would you go about finding the duplicate? Of course, everyone's thinking of different ways. There's a bunch of different ways to do this. The first way we explored was to loop through the array and create an object with key value pairs. Each time you create a new key and you assign it the value of +1. When you get down to here where the object.number equals 2, you found your duplicate. This has a time complexity of O to the n and a space complexity of 2x. Another way to do this would be to sum all the integers in the array, add up their values, and then check the difference, and that would give you real quick the number that's extra in there when you know what 1 plus a million would equal. This is considered linear time with a time complexity of O(n) and a space complexity of only 1x. So if we go back to our chart, you can see O(n) is down here in this yellow section. So both of those, neither one of those would be excellent code written, and 2x there would take up twice as much data space as the other one, which is that space complexity you talked about. So here is the impact. Whew. To write sustainable, power efficient, and green software, you need to understand the power consuming behavior of a computer program. Developers, by improving their code implementations, will optimize software power consumption. The capacity to locate hot points in parts of code consuming the most amount of energy will help developers optimize their code and build efficient, sustainable, and green software. So in the end, we kind of need to remember, bring it home, like what we're fighting for, what the impact our code has on, and it's our planet. We only get one of these, so we need to consider how to take care of it. Thank you. And here's my questions. And I'll put these in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Virginia.
Doo, doo, doo.
All right, we'll go ahead. I'm going to open up those. Do you need? Yeah, you can put those in the chat when we go into breakout rooms. Thank you. All right, Joma, whenever you're ready, go ahead and share your screen and you can get started once you have everything set up.
All righty, let me do that now. Mike hasn't responded to me.
Me neither.
Just keep messaging him.
Can't interrupt the man when he's on a run. Okay. Can everyone see all that?
Yes.
My screen moving back and forth and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Joma, 1909 backend. Going to be talking about social media in our open spaces. So just a little bit of background about me. Like before I was here at Turing, I was really involved in like the outdoor industry, and like if I didn't go to Turing, I'd be a mountain guide. So this is like just a topic that I've been really passionate about. So yeah, here it goes. So we all know social media, right? Facebook, Instagram, and all that. And for better or worse, it's part of our lives now constantly. I personally am on Instagram a lot. I used to be on Facebook a lot. I still have it. It's a fantastic way to like stay in touch with friends and whatnot. But I think it goes without saying like it can be kind of toxic too. But in terms of the social media and outdoors, there's a lot it does benefit. Kind of provides a lot of benefit for everyone. Education, not everyone necessarily grew up around the outdoors. So being able to teach people about the outdoors and preserving our spaces, I think is one of the best ways to get people excited about sustainability and being able to preserve our outdoor spaces for the future. So education is a big part of it. Inspiration, sometimes like I like to go to Instagram to get inspiration on like the next big thing or next big place I want to go see and whatnot. So that kind of sharing of info, I think, is very important. Efficiency, access to information about that, same kind of thing. Community as well is, I think, a big part. It develops a network of like-minded folks, and it also includes people, right? Like now that we're in a world that's very connected, everyone has access to the internet now. We're able to access all these things that that we might not have had access to, and like be able to see like all the cool things we can do and whatnot. So yeah, there's a lot of things that social media does for us, mostly sharing of information, right? And to kind of help us make decisions on kind of like the next cool thing that we want to do. But kind of the next question of that is, what is all this exposure doing, right? It kind of brings us into this catch-22. More people outdoors means more people caring, but it also increases the pressure on the environment as we flock to popular spots. So this picture is like a picture of Everest, and it, it's in the Himalaya, right? Like 50 years ago, it was so untouchable, right? Like not a lot of people got to go there, but now, yeah, this is what it looks like. There are huge lines. There are kind of these big messes, and like kind of compounds a lot of the human impact, which in the high alpine, like a lot of the stuff that humans change don't go away quickly, so there are these trash issues, there's these like human waste issues in like these high areas and whatnot, and like sometimes and the reality is people die up there, and some of those bodies are still up there and whatnot. So this is kind of like one of the more extreme examples, but like even here in Colorado, like more and more people are moving here, trying to go see our like natural resources, like the Maroon Bells Rocky Mountain National Park. There are a lot of people who are taking up these spaces that used to be that are very delicate. So kind of just the impact on natural resources is kind of becoming an issue, like the more and more people access these. And I think social media has a lot to do with that. Another example here in Colorado in 2017, there were 6 deaths in Capitol Peak. As like a very avid mountaineer, and like I really follow like these things a lot, and just kind of anecdotal evidence maybe, but I think there's something to it. 14ers.com Facebook group has doubled in size in the last 3 years. It went from, I think there are probably about 30,000 people on there right now. And I did a lot of sharing of like the cool stuff I had done before that. And I was part of this like group of people who were like, feel like they were sharing a lot of information. And it kind of came to head when like in 2017, when there were a lot of deaths on Capitol Peak. And a lot of it was because I think, and a lot of other people in the community think that all this increased exposure on that group kind of got a lot of people thinking like, oh, this is easy. Like everyone can do it. I can do it. But it really does take a lot to be able to do this and do it safely. And I think that's where it's kind of run away, all this exposure to a point where we can't handle it. And to that Facebook group's credit, they, after in recent years, they've been doing a lot more moderating and whatnot to kind of help educate people a little better about that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, funny picture with the fluffy cows. That's also another thing. People kind of take selfies with animals, wild animals, right? In like Yellowstone, get gored by like bison or moose, bears and stuff. So I don't know, stupid picture. So how is we as developers then solve this catch-22? Like, is it even our responsibility to kind of regulate the kind of information that we share on the internet? Do we just abstain from social media completely? And are there other better ways social media can benefit our open spaces? So I'll go ahead and drop this in the chat right now.
Great, thanks, Joma. I'll go ahead and put you all in the same groups that you were for the next 4 minutes, and then we'll come back one last time before sending you all off.